This week on World Traveler Cooking, we're going to make Doro Wat. And we'll do a simplified version for you. Those of you who have trouble getting some of the ingredients, I'm going to use straight butter instead of the Ethiopian clarified butter. Primarily because I'll do another video on how to do the clarified butter in the future. But that's like a whole different video in itself. So in the idea that you might want to make this, and you might not be able to get all the ingredients, some things are fairly easy to get and others are not. One thing that you will have to deal with though is berbere spice. And my recommendation is finding berbere spice online. Everywhere I've lived, I've been able to find some. In this case, I was able to find this here in Indonesia. Bumbu means spice, but I've also been able to find it when I was in Germany. Doro Wat is sort of the national dish of Ethiopia. It's a rich, thick chicken stew filled with eggs, really thick broth, almost bordering on a sauce, and it's done in a way which is filled with religious significance as well. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But into this I'm going to take about 5 pounds of chicken. This I have 2 chickens here. I have whole chickens. I will remove the skin and I will cut them into 12 pieces each. People do 12 pieces for the 12 tribes of Jacob. You could do 6 pieces each since I have 2 chickens, then we'd have 12 pieces also. That would work. I'm going to use probably all 3 of these onions. These are red onions. Most people are not used to seeing these used in the sauté of a stew, but this is particularly what they use in Ethiopia. We will add 6 boiled eggs. We'll use a mixture of vinegar. You can use any kind, but I happen to have apple cider here. And water to clean the chicken. We will also have some ginger and some garlic. Typically, I think I'd want about 2 tablespoons each, but I ran out of ginger, so I'm using less today. With most of these traditional recipes, if you run out of an ingredient, you can just use a little less of it. It'll still be okay. And then, of course, I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of normal butter. Normally in Ethiopia, you would use something called kibbeh, which is a spiced clarified butter. And then I will use a vegetable oil. So in the meantime, so the first thing we're going to do here is I'm going to cut this chicken, I'm going to remove the skin, and I'm going to wash it thoroughly in a mixture of about 1 part vinegar to 4 parts water. Okay? And once I'm back from doing that, then I will cover the next step. In the meantime, I will chop my onions. So we'll do all that. We'll be back once the mise en place is set up, and we'll go from there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the onions to a pan. I'm going to cook this in a wok here, but I'm adding it without any oil. Now this wok, of course, is been oiled just to keep it in good shape. But we're going to just keep stirring this and let the onions kind of caramelize or simmer in place. And we're going to let them kind of cook slowly in place until they change color and they're really sticking to the pan. So this will take a while, so maybe 20-30 minutes. Then I'll be back for the next step. Now, while I'm cooking these, I'm also going to hard boil the eggs. Eggs should cook, I think, for about 8 minutes once the water boils. So we can start that now. In the meantime, you can see that these are just starting to change color. It's going to take a bit longer, quite a while longer, until these are ready. So we'll just keep cooking these for a while. And let the eggs cook too. So one important note here is that you want to make sure that you haven't put the heat on too high. So keep this on, if you're using a gas flame, probably pretty low. If you're on an electric stove, maybe a medium low. And you want it to take ideally 30 to 40 minutes to really start to stick. We're actually effectively caramelizing these onions here. So just let them keep cooking, and except it's going to take a while. Resist the urge to move too fast on these dishes. So these are getting pretty dry and they're starting to stick to the bottom, so I think we're ready to move on. First thing I'm going to add is salt. And keep in mind this is a stew, so you need to add plenty of salt. And you'll note that instead of drawing water out, because the onions are now pretty dry, it just kind of continues to form this drier paste. Then I'm going to add these seasonings here, and I'm going to add the berbere at this point. Now, if you don't like it as spicy, add less berbere. I'm going to add, I think, about a cup, so that's probably 60-70 grams. And if you don't like it this spicy, add less and substitute some tomato paste. I'll include discussions on that in the... and then into this we're going to add about a cup or so of vegetable oil. We're just going to stir this all together for a while. I don't think that's a cup yet. I think I'll need to add more. Yeah, definitely add more. Now, if I were using the spiced butter, I would probably add a little less of the berbere, but I am partly compensating for that. The second thing is that berbere acts partly as a thickener and an emulsifier. So it's going to take this oil and it's going to make this nice, rich sauce emulsion that we like to see in our sauces. So I'll be back once I've stirred in all of that. Next I will add the butter. And if I was using tomato paste, I would add it here also. And I'm just going to stir this all in until everything's cooked well and incorporated well. And if there's way too much oil still separating out, then maybe I'll even add some more spice mixture. But this is actually looking pretty good. I think we'll be fine. So there was a lot of oil on top, so I added the rest of the spices. Again, I like things spicy. If you don't, you could use tomato paste instead. Now I'm going to add the pieces of chicken. And by the way, I am adding the feet and the heads. For the demonstration here, everybody keeps saying, "Hey, chicken head, I've never seen you eat one," so I will eat the chicken head for the taste test. So I'm just basically going to let the chicken stew in this liquid, in this for just a little bit, and then I'm going to start adding water, just a bit at a time. So this has been cooking for a little bit. It's just kind of lightly seared on top. I've added about, I would say, I'm adding about, I want to say, around 200 milliliters of water, maybe half a cup. And I'm just going to let this stew for a while. And then maybe I'll add some more. We want this to really be thick, more like a sauce than like a soup. So just let this stew for a bit. I'm going to turn the heat up now, and I'll be back to check on it in a bit. So I'm going to plate a little bit of this up, and I'm just going to taste it. Normally this would be served with injera bread, and I have a video on how to do that, but doing injera bread here is, of course, a little different, and I'm still kind of getting the hang of you working with the wild cultures. So I'm just going to eat this just straight. And as I promised everyone, yes, this is the Doro Wat, and this is in fact a chicken head. I will be eating the chicken head. And now for the taste test. First I'm going to try some of the sauce. It's really earthy and really spicy. This is absolutely delicious. I'm going to see how this is transferred into the meat. That is freaking delicious. It's amazing. Now, if you find this content interesting, please like, share, and subscribe. If you make this dish a little differently than I do, please, I'd love to hear how. Please mention it in the comments. As always, recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.